We're going to give it another few minutes. I'll let everybody gather in here just in case there is. I'm going to start again at 6. So I'm still going to start here at 6. I just want to let everybody gather in and just get settled at this side, make sure everything on the YouTube side is still running. Stingray says he made a new Dallas Stars chant. Please give it to me. Stingray says Dallas sucks. Hey, that was a rough series for the Dallas Stars. Again, I got numbers that will dictate some of that stuff, Stingray, and also maybe bleed into what's worked for Edmonton and what hasn't. Again, I will start this one at 6. I've gone through the notes. I've gone through the pre-read. I think it's going to probably be about 35, 40 minutes, depending on who shows in here. I know Alec Nav is going to be working with me throughout the entirety of this series. He's probably also going to be doubling up with the NBA Finals. So we will get this started at 6. Alec's going to get joined in. So as it is, I'm going to bring Alec in at the end. I'm going to get through the preamble here in another minute or so through these notes, and then we'll bring it in customary as the predictions and all that officially get started. And if you have any comments on the bottom side, Stingray, I appreciate you on the YouTube side. Shout those along, and I will add some of your stuff in there as we get to the end and get through our predictions and all of that. All right, so Alex listening in. Again, I'm going to get him in at the end when we get a chance to get this stuff started here in about another minute or so. All right, everybody, John on here with you. I got Alec Navel listening in, and I will be bringing him in toward the end of this part of the broadcast as we get to the preamble. It's a Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025. How's everybody doing out there today? I can't believe we're about to do this again. It's the 4th time covering the Stanley Cup Finals. Started from 2022 with Cooper Hopkins and myself, and all the way through 2025. Alec's been with me over the last several now. And this one's going to be a lot of fun. It's set to be a rematch. So the Florida Panthers were 47-31-4, 12-5 in the postseason, head coached by Paul Maurice. Again, their path was a pretty easy one, all things considered, but the teams they played were not that easy. Tampa 4-1, Toronto 4-3, Carolina 4-1. Top forwards in the regular season, and this is where you'll notice that order. Sam Reinhart, 39 goals, 42 assists, 81 points plus 6. Aleksander Barkov only played 67 games, 20, 51, and 71. Matthew Tkachuk, he was injured in that Four Nations face-off after all that was said and done, and that put Florida on a little bit of a spot where they had to play on the road every series. 52 games played, 22 goals, 35 assists, 57 points, minus 3. Carter Verhaeghe, 20, 33, 53, minus 14. Sam Bennett, he's going to be due a pay raise, maybe about north of 10 million. 25, 26, 51, minus 15, and Anton Lundell, 17, 28, 45, plus 17. In the regular season, the defensive pairings sound like this. Aaron Ekblad only played 56 games, 3 goals, 30 assists, 33 points, plus 11. Gustav Forsling, 11, 20, 31, plus 33. Nico Mikkola, 6, 16, 22, plus 12. Nate Schmidt, 5, 14, 19, plus 4. Pretty good for Nate Schmidt, considering he was a cast-off and from the Winnipeg Jets and multiple other teams. Darn near a league min for Nate Schmidt. He's been very good. So top forwards in the playoffs. We're going to get on Barkov's note, the Selke winner. You're right, Stingray there. 17 games unless noted. So for Barkov, he's been a point-a-game player. 6 goals, 11 assists, 17 points, plus 4. Sam Bennett has scored 10 goals already in the postseason. 10, 6, 16, plus 2. Matthew Tkachuk has been his usual self, point per game. 5, 11, 16, plus 4. Carter Verhaeghe really found his offense in that Carolina series. 6, 8, 14, plus 4. Brad Marchand has been a revelation. Again, for Brad Marchand, we know he's going to be an instant Hall of Famer, but he's fit like a glove. 4, 10, 14, plus 11 since coming over. Eetu Luostarinen, 4-9-13 plus 11. Sam Reinhart played 15 games, missed the last couple, 4-9-13 plus 4. Sam Reinhart again second in that Selke and behind Barkov as far as the voting. Anton Lundell, another third liner, 5-7-12 plus 12. And Erod, Evan Rodriguez, played 15 games, just the one goal, but 10 assists, 11 points plus 2. Top defensive pairings in the playoffs, might as well go through them all because they've all been good. Aaron Ekblad in 13 games, 3-8-11 plus 6. Zeph Jones, that contract doesn't look so bad now where you get the 50% retention, does it? 3-4-7 plus 9. Nate Schmidt, 3-4-7 plus 6. Nico Mikkola, 3 goals as well, 2 assists, 5 points plus 7. Dmitry Kulikov added a goal, 3 assists, 4 points plus 1. Gustav Forsling, same thing, but plus 10. Sergei Bobrovsky, again, I didn't include Vitek Vanacek because he's not going to play in this series unless we see another, 8-1 from the Game 4 side for Edmonton last year in their attempt to try to get all the way back. Sergei Bobrovsky, 54 games played in the regular season, 33-19-2, 244 goals against, 906 save, and 5 shutouts in the playoffs. Again, every game, all 17, 12, and 5. 211 goals against, 912, and 3 shutouts. He has been Mr. Consistency. For Florida, before we get into Edmonton, I just want you to keep in mind the depth. The Panthers have scored at least 5 goals in this playoff run 9 times. It's a combined 15 goals from the blue line. You can add Elvis Bezlinskis in there. And between fourth line forwards AJ Greer, Jonah Gadrich, and Thomas Nosek, they're a combined 4 goals, 5 assists, 9 points plus 10. Wild card for me might be Jesper Boquist because he's bounced up and down that lineup with the injury to Sam Reinhart, who's back now. But Boquist's been pretty good. 11 games played, 2-3-5, and is even on the plus-minus. And is the third line for the Cats the best in the NHL? I'm talking about Brad Marchand, Luostarinen, and Lundell. They're a combined 13 goals, 26 points, 26 assists, 39 points, plus 34. Again, those are just the playoff numbers. So when you add Brad Marchand, who was already into a good third line last year, that was already their shutdown line, now you've given them goal scoring, and I think that's the best, not only remaining in the playoffs, obviously, because we're in the final, but I think that's the best in the NHL. So for the Edmonton Oilers, they're 48-29-5. They were 12-4 in the postseason, head coached by Chris Knobloch. Again, it's the first time since Scotty Bowman in the first 2 seasons that head coach has coached in the Stanley Cup Finals in the first 2 years. That's what Chris Knobloch's done. The Edmonton Oilers are seeking their first Stanley Cup since 1990, and they will have home ice advantage in the postseason for the first time since 1988. It's certainly been a while. Top forwards in the regular season for the Oilers sound a little bit different, but they dealt with a lot of injuries. Leon Draisaitl, 71 games played, 52 goals, 54 assists, 106 points, and a plus 32. Connor McDavid only played 67 games in the regular season, but he still had 26, 74, and 100. Still got to a 100-point marker in 67 games, plus 20. RNH did not have the usual regular season he did. In 78 games played, 20, 29, 49, plus 4. Zach Hyman, unfortunately, will be missing the rest of the year. 73 games played, 27, 17, 44, plus 9. Connor Brown was pretty decent, 13 goals, 17 assists, 30 points, and a plus 9. Corey Perry has also been a revelation, especially in the postseason, but he had 30 points in the regular season, 19 goals, 11 assists, and a plus 12. Top defensive pairings in that regular season, Evan Bouchard, no surprise there, 14 goals, 53 assists, 67 points, plus 14. Matthias Ekholm only played 65 games, 9-24-33 plus 11. Darnell Nurse, I know, much maligned, but still a pretty good defenseman. 5-28-33 plus 11. Brett Kulak, 7-18-25 minus 7. Stingray says 1988 was the only clean sweep in a best of 7 need after 5 games. You're absolutely correct. We're going to get more of that a little bit later. Top forwards in the playoffs, 16 games unless noted here for the Oilers. Connor McDavid, he's back to his usual self. And by the way, I got some more notes on him that you're going to want to stay tuned for. 6 goals, 20 assists, 26 points plus 10. Leon Draisaitl, 7-18-25 plus 11. RNH has been wonderful in the postseason for the Oil. 5-13-18 plus 8. He's giving you all the secondary goal scoring you need. Now you can put on that second line. You don't have to get stuck at the third line center. Evander Kane, 5-6-11 plus 5. who was back and healthy. Again, Zach Hyman played 15 games in the postseason, 5-6-11 plus 10. He's out. Again, you mentioned for Hyman about 55 hits in the regular season, giving something that Edmonton really needed. They're going to miss him. Corey Perry, 40 years old, on the first line, 7 goals, 3 assists, 10 points plus 4. Connor Brown, again in my notes, I marked injured, but I believe he is cleared now for the game tomorrow to start the Stanley Cup Finals. 14 games played, 5 goals, 3 assists, 8 points plus 3, and I'm not saying that lightly. Top defensive pairings in the playoffs: Bouchard, 6, 11, 17 plus 9. Jake Wallman, since that trade over there in between the San Jose Sharks. Again, I'm still wondering how Steve Yzerman didn't get a first. 1, 5, 6 plus 12 leads the NHL on the blue line side for plus minus. Another shout out, Brett Kulak, 1, 4, 5 plus 11 for Kulak, who's normally on the third line. Darnell Nurse, 2, 3, 5 plus 3. And John Klingberg, I just have to say that Bouchard is only bad in the D zone, says Stingray. Well, we'll see. Klingberg, 15 games played, 1, 3, 4 plus 6. You remember 4 or 5 years ago when he was with the Dallas Stars and it was defense and name only for Mr. John Klingberg, and now he's a plus 6 and being reunited with Jake Wallman, all of a sudden finding his game. That is not a small feat. That's good work for him. And Mattias Ekholm, just the one game as he just returned 1 goal, 1 point, plus 2. Here is the mercurial part for the Edmonton Oilers. Stuart Skinner, goaltending, 51 games played. Where have you heard that before? 26, 18, and 4, 281 goals against, 896 save percentage, and 3 shutouts. Calvin Pickard played 36 games, played pretty good for a backup, 22, 10, and 1. 271 goals against, 900 save percentage. No shutouts to speak of, but the numbers not too bad. In the playoffs, Stuart Skinner had the horrific first 2 games against the LA Kings. We're going to talk about the Jim Hiller challenge and everything else too. We have that put in the notes. But 10 games played, 6 and 4, 253 goals against, 904 save percentage, and 3 shutouts. So to still have a 904 and still have 3 shutouts in the mix of how bad it started, Stuart Skinner was excellent, especially in the Western Conference Finals against Dallas. He couldn't score. Calvin Pickard, 7 games played, 6-0, 284 goals against, 888 save percentage. So which Skinner, yes, again, I have to put that in my notes, had a span of 3 shutouts in 4 games against Vegas, 3-0, 1-0, and 3-0 respectively, gave up just 1 goal or fewer in 5 of those 6 games. That was after being pulled, giving up 11 in 2 games against LA. Pickard goes 6-0, gets hurt. Skinner then seems to have the net under control. In my opinion, and I'm not just saying this to be nice, I think Stuart Skinner is the best netminder in the league when it comes to keeping things in the past and putting poor performances in the back of his mind. If you ever heard some of his candid quotes, answers, and honesty, he's the right type of goalie that you want. When things go bad, you can put that in the back of his mind and concentrate on the next game. And by the way, he's an upcoming UFA as part of that cap crunch. And Alec Nava noted that as well. Maybe the Winnipeg Jets can use him for road playoff games and use Connor Hellebuck at home. Then maybe they can realize their Stanley Cup dreams. And honestly, I'm not joking when I say that. Here's some trivia for you. When was the last tandem in the postseason to include a backup who won his first 6 starts? I know it's an easy one, but I'll give you a hint. It was my first Stanley Cup Finals, the first that Cooper Hopkins and I covered, and all told, one of my most fondest broadcasting memories. If you guess the recent 2022 Colorado Avalanche, you'd be correct. Again, their starter, Darcy Kemper, 10-4, 257 goals against, 902 and a shutout. But Pavel Francouz is the man that we were looking for, 6-0, 281 goals against, 906 and 1 shutout. If you could trade the Edmonton Oilers tandem for Kemper and Francouz of 2022, would you do it? Because their numbers, even though they look a little bit better, they're pretty close to being the same. One last thing here for the Oil before we switch. Best version, striking Oil, question mark. It is my belief that with the addition of Jake Wallman being the top plus-minus in the playoffs and the revival of John Klingberg, used to be defensive name only as we talked about, that this Edmonton blue line is the most competent they have been in the Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl era. Corey Perry, again, 40 years old, playing on the first line and has 7 goals. Edmonton's always known for their quick puck movement, but I do think Chris Knoblauch has initialized, especially in his second year. You gain the experience from last year, the heartbreak that was in a Game 7, all of that. You put that in the back of your mind, and I think this is the best version of the team. Now, notwithstanding the Zach Hyman injury with 120-plus hits, the physicality is definitely going to be missed. But RNH and Evander Kane, who have combined for 29 points and a plus 13, can pick up the slack. And oh, by the way, if you haven't been paying attention at home, McDavid is now also playing on the penalty kill and maximizing back check efforts. More notes on that in a second. Here's my initial key to watch in this rematch. Now, admittedly, I'm not the encyclopedia that Alec Nava is. I'm not the savant. But there has been enough of a sample size. I think we can all agree that all the top forwards, I'm talking about Tkachuk, Barkov, Verhaeghe, Reinhart, McDavid, Draisaitl, RNH, Bouchard, top D man, that both teams won't be denied production. I think we can all agree there. The entire Panthers blue line is the thing for me. They've been firing on all cylinders. Scoring, defense, spacing, none of that changes no matter what any 4 lines that Paul Maurice throws out there. Again, I might have said this a little bit last year, but I got to key on it again. Can Florida deny Bouchard goals from the point and close down the breakout passes? I know that's something that seems simple, but that is something that we saw a lot last year. When Florida had complete control of the series until they didn't, it started in Game 4. Edmonton came back to force a 3-0 series lead to a Game 7. Of note, the Panthers were getting killed off the rush, and I can't say that with enough emphasis. Edmonton won games 4 through 6 by a differential of 18-5, including an 8-1 demolishing in Game 4. If the Cats take control of this series again convincingly, I'm talking about a 2-0, 2-1, 3-0 situation, I'd expect Florida's got to key in on this, especially the second time, because things could be different now with a home ice advantage that Edmonton finally gets. Here's a look inside the numbers as we're getting close to finishing up before the predictions. So we're going to start with the Cats first, and then we're going to go right to Edmonton. Goals for in the postseason, 3.88 for the Cats, 4.09 for the Oil. Goals against, 2.29 versus 2.81 for Edmonton. So again, the goals against, we're going to have a note on that. It was so disparaging in between the first couple of games for Edmonton, and that Western Conference Finals series, Dallas just couldn't score. So those numbers, I think, are a little bit more out of whack than anything else. And the power play, obviously, Edmonton's got a little bit of an advantage. For the Cats, they scored the majority of their power play goals on the road. They're 23.2 percentage, which is not bad. If you're about 25%, you're doing something right. But the power play for Edmonton is at 30%. Penalty kill is the giant disparity. Just outside of 88%, 87.9 for Florida, 66% for the Edmonton Oilers. Now, that would tell you if you give up a few penalties here and there, it's going to be a coal bin in the back of your net. Now, the main thing for me when I leave it that way is I say that if Edmonton can kind of keep it down to 1 or 2 penalties, maybe 3 tops, I think that they'll be okay. It's when you get to the 4, 5, and 6s, if you kind of lead into the king rat of Brad Marchand trying to draw you into taking more penalties, that's when Edmonton's going to be in trouble. If they can keep that number down between 2 and 3, I don't think the 66% is going to be as bad. Hits per 60, nobody's going to match Florida here. 47 versus 38.72. Blocks per 60, a little bit different. Now, Florida's still pretty good at this, about 14.43, but they're going to block more shots to Edmonton in front of Skinner, 17.38. And the main thing for Edmonton is block those shots and then clear out the crease so you don't have guys like Sam Bennett and Tkachuk steamrolling Skinner or getting easy chances at the net. Leading after 1 period, both teams are a perfect 7-0. When they lead after 2 periods, the Cats still perfect 10-0. but Edmonton also 7-1. So when these teams have the lead, they're usually a Venus flytrap. Trailing after the first period, Cats haven't done that much. So they're just 1-1. Edmonton 3-2 when trailing after the first, so they can still win the game. When the Cats do trail after 2 periods, I wouldn't say turn the game off, but we notice that once they trail after the first 40, the record isn't as good. They're 1-4. Edmonton's still 500, 3-3, so that tells you a lot with the counterattack, as we always talk about. When the Cats score first, they're 9-2. Edmonton's also 7-2, but here's the big one. When trailing after the first, the Cats are 3-3, which is fine. They're 500. They're still pretty good. Edmonton's 5-2. So if they trail after 1, if they trail after 2, chances are more along the side of 60% or so between both of those averages, they're probably still winning the game if they're in within a couple of goals. Now, Florida is one of those teams that has a much better attack. They're multifaceted, Swiss Army knife. You got Evan Rodriguez, guys like that up and down the lineup. So scoring by period, it's a +4 differential in the first for the Cats, as expected, 17 goals for, 13 against. And the second, this is where they really take over, best in the business, 21-11. In the second period, sometimes you get that feeling out process. You expend a lot of energy from that first. It's not really an ease in, but you got to kind of mind the game and make sure you don't get caught cheating too much one way or the other. Florida +10, that's big, trying to take control. And the third, excellent as well. They close it out 27-15 goal differential, +12 in the third, and they're 1-0 in overtime. Only played the one overtime game. Edmonton scoring by period. This is where I want to say it's a little bit into account. We'll get to that in a second. 18-14 in the first, +4. 18-17 in the second, +2. 18-16, I should say. 26-15 in the third, that is a +11, and they're 3-0 in overtime. The note on the Oilers scoring, again, take account in that first round series with the LA Kings with the wild negative swings in a couple of games, but I do want to mention it like this. The correction stems largely from a Dallas team that had its own problems. Let's lean into it. Dallas, and the 12 of the first 14 games they played, they surrendered the first goal in the postseason. 10 games for the Stars, in which they had scored 1 goal or fewer, and they were shut out 4 times. That's my argument. So when you look at Edmonton scoring per period, yes, they're +4 in the first. Yes, +2 in the second. Yes, they are +11 in the third. That is where you can't argue anything. But in that first and second, Edmonton had negative differentials going into that Western Conference Finals against Dallas, and now they're only just +4, +2. Florida is not going to be anemic in any area, as we saw last year. So it's important that Edmonton does not allow Florida to get off to those quick starts and dictate the game. Yes, they can run the counterattack, but you don't want to have to do that in all 60 minutes in regulation. So that is where I think those numbers could use a little bit of a correction and have an advantage for Florida, as they should. A note on rematches, again, recent and a little bit later. Alek's going to know this well, and I think both of us will smile, and both of us will also shed tears, Mr. Nava. 2008, 2009. So 2008, that was the joyous occasion for me. The Red Wings defeated the Pittsburgh Penguins 4-2. 2009, I still shed a tear while Alek celebrates. They take the rematch in 7 games due to Pens. I am still haunted by the Nicholas Lidstrom shot in the slot being robbed by Marc-Andre Fleury right at the buzzer inside the crease. The Red Wings lost Game 7 at Joe Louis Arena. I don't think I've ever recovered since that. And it's been a complete slide. Again, the Penguins have had a little more success since the Red Wings have been in their downturn. We're still waiting for both teams back in the playoffs. But again, rematches the second time around. Pittsburgh won it. Marian Hossa was on the opposite side, but then he got his comeuppance with the Chicago Blackhawks in multiple cups. Again, we'll give you another one. 1983-84, the New York Islanders defeated the Edmonton Oilers 4-0 in a clean sweep. Oilers returned the favor in 84 by winning the series in 5 games. So this is a rematch here from 2024 to 2025 in between the Cats and the Edmonton Oilers. Again, we talk about it between the Red Wings and the Penguins 08-09. 83-84 between the Islanders and the Oilers. What is the theme? That's easy to get. The second time around, the team that initially lost has claimed the cup in this rematch. It's time to get into it a little bit, and I'm going to bring Alek Nava in. Who wins this series? Give reasons for both. What's different and what's the same? For Florida, Captain Aleksander Barkov has won the Selke Trophy as the best two-way forward for a third time. That ties the Red Wings legend Pavel Datsyuk. He still needs 3 more to tie Patrice Bergeron of the Boston Bruins, but point being, and again, we've said this over the last few years in 2023, I could talk about him being underrated. If I say that now, I'd be absolutely lying to you. He plays a premium center position. And when I talk about guys like Barkov, and I mentioned to you that McDavid is the best in the world, McKinnon's my favorite player to watch on that side of it. Barkov is in that conversation as number 3, and he's probably a more complete player than Nathan McKinnon even is. Brad Marchand is fit like a glove. The third line is the best in the business for the Cats, and out from last season, OEL, Womberg, Montour, Okposo, Stemlin, and Tarasenko. Don't you think they've all been replaced? This is probably a better team, I would say, for certain than last year. Quickly here for the Cats. Timeline, Bill Zito, the new GM in 2020, Paul Maurice, head coach 2022, made the Stanley Cup final in 96 and were swept by Colorado. We mentioned it last year. They hadn't won a playoff series before that since 2022. Jonah Gadjevich, AJ Greer signed for minimums. Balinskis was a free agent. Gustav Forsling, waiver claim. Nate Schmidt was a cast-off from the Jets. Matthew Tkachuk acquired in a trade. Sergei Bobrovsky once thought $10 million albatross is going to be an instant Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. My point being is this: it's not taxes. Forget the taxes narrative. Bringing hockey initially in the mid-90s to South Florida was a cruel joke. Brad Marchand was not only lowballed by the Bruins, but he said post-game they had been building something with the culture and it hadn't happened overnight. When the organization is well-run and the on-ice product is good, players take less to experience that type of success. The Florida Panthers are just a great organization. Yes, over the next 3 years, the cap will go up $7 million, but it's not largely taxes. Will they have more of an advantage then in the next 3 years? Yes, but it is a well-run organization. You got to credit Bill Zito, been able to move on from Jonathan Huberdeau to get Matthew Tkachuk, because that's a guy that had about 110 assists, and you just kind of toss that on the side to change your culture. And bringing in Paul Maurice was a little bit of an initial head-scratcher, as I mentioned. What's different for Edmonton? So here's a big note for me, and this is credit also to the NHL Tonight crew. Connor McDavid last season in the playoffs had 7 games where he played 25 minutes or more time on ice. That's way too much. But again, in between Draisaitl and McDavid, you have to have those engines. You got to get everything working. You got to make sure that you get success, and it's driven by the guys that drive the bus, obviously. But the depth is so much better now for the Oilers. And as mentioned earlier, his role has expanded. So it was 7 games of 25 minutes time TOI plus this season, just twice so far. And he's also getting that expanded penalty kill role and everything else as mentioned. So did you know for McJesus, 32 goals, 89 assists, 121 playoff points. That's combined the last 3 postseasons and in the middle of this one. He's also a league best plus 36 in his last 69 games. So 69 postseason games, 121 points in totality plus 36. Third in goals, but first in everything else. Assists, points, power play points, plus minus. Scary to think that the viral video of, and you remember this, it's not effing good enough. You remember that one after that in Game 7 has gotten them back here. No, Zach Hyman's not there. He said he would get back there. And honestly, this team, when you think about it, we talked about the injuries and everything else at the beginning of the year. I think they've had very cold waters for them to navigate. What I mean by that is they've kept that business-like approach. They've gotten some of that experience in from last year, and they feel good about their game. They're confident in what they've done in the second go-around. You're not going to have those butterflies. Not that they did anyway, because they forced the Game 7 and almost made the memes of everything. But still, this has been a low-key effort here for Edmonton, and it might just be enough. Dylan Holloway, Philip Broberg, Cody Ceci exit. Again, Zach Hyman done for the year. Connor Brown cleared for Game 1. One last note before I get in the prediction. So Road Warriors, Florida, 12-5 in their record. They're 8-2 away from Amerant Bank Arena, but they're just 4-3 on home ice. 2 6-1 wins in Toronto in games 5 and 7. They absolutely dominate on the road, and they pretty much disembowel their opponents. But if they're going to win this Stanley Cup final and go for 2 out of 3, they got to improve that 4-3 record. Yes, they're going to start on the road again. Edmonton's going to get home ice advantage this time around, but that has got to be better. And for Edmonton, they're good everywhere. Again, 12-4 in the postseason, 6-3, 6-1 at home. They've been good everywhere, low-key everything from the start of 1-2 in between the LA Kings. That's rebounded, and that seems like a formality. So let me get into the predictions, and then we'll get into all the shout-outs and everything else. So I'm going to say this begrudgingly or not, because I know the Detroit Red Wings will always be number one in my heart. Calgary Flames, with working all these games with Cooper Hopkins, that has been my adopted team. So for me to say anything nice about the Edmonton Oilers, I have to do it as the analyst hat and say it correctly. I think I'm going to say this now. I'm going to go out on a limb. Now, if the Cats do what they normally do, and they can take control and go to a 3-1, 4-0 type of deal, then we'll see. If it goes 2-1, 3-0, I don't think Edmonton's going to come back. But at this point, this team is so much better on the blue line. You got that secondary in the mix of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl will be able to split those lines. Another year for Chris Knoblauch. I'm taking the Edmonton Oilers in this rematch. Again, the rematches, as we told, within the first 3, you stretch them out. The second team has won the second time around. I think it's going to happen. If it does not happen now, I'm going to tell you this. If it doesn't happen now, it's not going to happen anymore. This is the best chance for Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl to do it right now before they get in the cap crunch. If they don't win in 2025, they're not going to win in the McDavid-Draisaitl era. That's my rubber stamp here. But I will take them, and I will take them in a long series. Give me the Oilers in 6. That's depending on if everything else, as we said, Connor McDavid plays his game, and between both sides, they are able to kind of go ahead and get that push, make sure that they can score off the rush, play even keel when you need to with the Cats, and shut down that third line. Because if the Cats can go back around it for Lundell, Luostarinen, and Marchand, they dominate. The top line's going to dominate on both sides, and Bobrovsky has his day, then the Cats will win. But if not, I will take Edmonton in my prediction. I'm going to bring Alec in here. I'm going to have him give me his thoughts, and then we'll give you the shout-outs and the schedule. So I'm going to pause here for a second and bring Mr. Nava in on the broadcast to have him give me his predictions. Alec, how are you?
Doing good, John. How about you?
I'm doing well. Hopefully the preamble wasn't too long. Initially, as before you let me get through all the notes, I'm going to ask you this. I am taking the Edmonton Oilers in 6 this year. I know Cooper Hopkins probably going to give me a virtual smack across the airwaves, but what say you? What are the reasons for both if you're picking them, and who are you taking?
All right, so it doesn't take a lot of time to get these two teams accustomed to one another. They know each other so well. You can say that they're both better than what they were last year. You take the Panthers score from last year. You replace Brandon Montour or Seth Jones, who was in an ill-fated role with the Chicago Blackhawks. Now he's comfortable playing next to Nico Mikkola on the second pairing. You replace Vladimir Tarasenko, Brad Marchand. Natural fit on the Cats. The Rat King on the Rats, as ironic as this is. But also fitting that he's on that third line with Luostarinen and Lundell. We're basically a third-line version of Barkov and Reinhart. Defensive stalwarts, offensive forces. Barkov and Reinhart finished first and second in Selke Trophy voting. Reinhart expanded his game on the defensive side, playing next to Barkov. You have Evan Rodriguez, Swiss Army knife, on the top line, former Pittsburgh Penguin. Then you go on with the defensive pairings. Of course, that remains mostly the same, except you replace the aforementioned Montour with Jones and Oliver Ekman-Larsson with Nate Schmidt. Well, that's a revival. You want to play for Paul Maurice? Got his wish. Fourth line is basically a whole switcheroo. You're not really losing much, but you're getting similar production to what was seen last year between Nick Cousins, Kevin Stenlund, Steven Lorentz, Kyle Okposo on that mix. But now you have AJ Greer, Nico Sturm, Tomas Nosek, Jonah Gadjevich, and if there's an injury, Florida does have the bodies to back them up to fill them in that hole. Mackie Samoskevich, Jesper Boquist, and the aforementioned Sturm can fill that regard. Sturm won a cup with the Colorado Avalanche 3 years ago. Florida has the all-around defensive systems built for the playoffs. They're good on the road as well. The home ice advantage, though, has not been there for them. So that could be something the Oilers can take advantage of, and that's where we lead directly to them. You mentioned about the Oilers and the time on ice usage for Connor McDavid. That was way too much last year. But in fairness, Leon Draisaitl was hurt for the majority of the Stanley Cup Final last year. He had some bruises and broken bones on him, and that impacted his play. But we didn't anticipate that he would get just 3 points in that Stanley Cup Final. But now, the fact that he is much, much healthier this year in comparison to last year, that's a different challenge for the Panthers this time around. My expectation for the Oilers is that they put McDavid and Draisaitl on separate lines. That's what they did in the Western Conference Final. You have McDavid on his own line with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and either Zach Hyman or Corey Perry. You put Perry on that top line. He's had a revival and drinking the fountain of youth going back to his Anaheim Ducks years. And he just announced that he's coming back for 1 more year. So he's coming back for his age 41 season, which is huge news because I don't imagine him going anywhere outside of Edmonton. This is his home now. Even if he retires as a Duck, Edmonton is where he finds his home. Yeah, he's on the top line. The playoffs are the type of games that he loves best. Net from presence, written sandpaper. Even if he's still the old guard, his leadership is crucial. On the second line, you have Draisaitl of Evander Kane, who showed his work and is back on the ice like he never left. Physical presence, can get at timely goals. And Kasperi Kapanen, who fit naturally on the second line next to Draisaitl. Ill-fated tenure with the St. Louis Blues. Same thing with the Pittsburgh Penguins. But now that he's playing next to Draisaitl, it's rejuvenated his career. If I'm the Oilers front office, I'll do everything to keep Kapanen on the second line next to Draisaitl, if that were the case, because he's a UFA after this year. Then you balance it out on the third and fourth lines. Fourth line doesn't have a natural center. Oh, you got an energy line, Vasily Podkolzin, Matthias Janmark, and Victor Arvidsson. And the third line, Trent Frederick, Adam Henrique, and Connor Brown. They've impressed so far. Power play, of course, is vaunted and dangerous. Defensive core, that's been the most impressive part of the Oilers, in my opinion. And they've been doing this without Matthias Ekholm for the first 15 games, which is even more impressive. And now that he's back, you pair him next to Evan Bouchard on the usual top pair, that's going to be a huge factor. I felt that might have twisted something on Florida's plans, which I don't know if they were prepared for them. I don't know if preparations for that were possible, but I believe yes, because people were anticipating, when is Ekholm going to come back? Well, he's back in time for the finals. And when we watched him play in Game 5 against Dallas, he looked comfortable on the ice. He looked in his natural element. Bouchard, of course, has that howitzer of a one-timer that is very dangerous and difficult to stop. But goaltending matchup is going to be the one to watch. Sergei Bobrovsky played some of the best hockey that he's played in the Eastern Conference Final, and he overcame a tough start against Toronto. The Edmonton Oilers, however, are a different challenge because it looked between games 3 and 6 that he was off his rhythm in last year's final. That the Oilers' rush attack was too much for the Panthers to overcome. Last year's series looked like 3 different series in one.
Yeah.
First off, and Steve Dangle said this in his cup check. First off, it seemed like the Oilers didn't have a chance in the first 3 games. Secondly, it felt as if the Panthers didn't have a response for the Oilers' answers in games 4 through 6. Game 7 felt like the most normal game of that finals. This year, I think it's going to be much tighter. But I would not be surprised if there are some high-scoring track meets in this series. Florida, they do have some high-scoring games of their own, especially on the road. But normally, low-scoring games favor the Panthers, and high-scoring games favor the Oilers. That's just their style of play. So, but you mentioned a common theme. Now I want to add to that common theme. The teams that won the first of back-to-back Stanley Cup Finals feature some of the greatest teams ever constructed between the Islander dynasty and the Red Wings empire. The rematch was won by the team that lost the first matchup, and those teams that won the second matchup, they had generational superstars and all-time NHL greats on their roster. The Oilers had Gretzky in '84 and beyond. But not just him. You think Messier, Curry, Coffey, Anderson, Lowe, and Fuhr. The Penguins had Crosby, Malkin, Fleury, Letang. You can even add Gonchar in that 2019. And even a wide cast of characters on that 2019 that included Kunitz, Guerin, Stahl, Kennedy, Fedotenko, Talbot. The list goes on from there. And the Penguins want to win 2 more cups with different cast of characters. But I think that theme continues onwards. The last year's loss may linger onto the Oilers' minds here, which I think is going to be amplifying that revenge factor. We talked of Stuart Skinner, how he is excellent at rebounding from the face of adversity. I think he might continue that onwards here. He's playing like he's channeling his inner Bill Ranford right now. And if Florida can't manage to solve that, that's going to be a problem. But the Oilers, they find Bobrovsky playing miles above his head. That's also another problem. Yeah. But I think revenge prevails. The theme continues. And yes, I think it goes to 7. And Paul Maurice has a perfect 6-0 record in Game 7s. But we mentioned previously, at some point, records are meant to be broken. I'm taking Edmonton at 7.
So here's the key thing. Again, I have 6, you have 7, and I think we'll both agree on this, Alec. I know all your points are well taken. Everything has been well done. The show's been great. In the mix of it, this is a time where Edmonton, this time around, Alec, has home ice advantage. Again, we just punched that button because we needed to. You had this Sam Reinhart in the 2-1 and the play against the boards last year where Florida was able to hold on. Can you imagine what would have happened last year if Edmonton had home ice advantage? That might have been the bit of a difference here. Again, it's not something that we always talk about, but I think for Edmonton, it's fundamentally important.
It is. Plus, the Oilers realize that along with the desperation factor, this is their last great shot before they have to pay Draisaitl $14 million a year for the next 8 years, and even have to give Evan Bouchard a huge pay raise. Plus, McDavid's in line for a new contract by next summer.
Yeah, there's a lot to do. We talked about that cap crunch. Again, Stuart Skinner is going to be another one of those guys. How much money does he make considering what everyone else is already making? I know it's not going to be a small feat when I say it that way, but you're right, Alec. There's a lot going on. I do want to give a shout out to everyone else as far as the broadcast, and then we'll get into the schedule and close out. So make sure you follow our live broadcast. We're going to be with you as long as the series goes. Again, we got 4 guaranteed. Everything else is, if necessary, per usual. But on X, YouTube, and Twitch, at @YinzerAlec, John Reinhart, and Cooper Hopkins, Alec and I, and John Reinhart, @YinzerAlec, will be carrying coverage primarily. If Cooper is able to join in, he definitely will. We'll have a trio broadcast. Our replays via broadcast. Again, Yinzer on the mic here for Alec. Again, he has that staggered, so he releases stuff every day, which is smart by him. Me, I kind of just get that out within the next 15 minutes once that's all done. So make sure you follow along at Hopeless Sports Guy and Yinzer on the mic. And again, written coverage on the same side as well for all of our shout outs. And then I want to mention one last thing as far as the series schedule. All TV times, and again, I had to double check my notes, and thank goodness that I did, because I thought ABC and ESPN would be carrying coverage this year, Alec, but they're not. For the first time, it's going to be TNT, True TV, and Max. Still going to be CBC and Sportsnet on the Canadian side. So TV side begins at 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll be on the air, and between X, YouTube, and Twitch around 8:10 Eastern. That at the latest. Again, Game 1 is tomorrow, Wednesday, June 4th. Game 2 will be Friday, June 6th, and then we will get a 3-day break in between most of everything else. Monday, June 9th, so no weekend games. You'll have the NBA Finals, but no weekend games this time around. Thursday, June 12th for Game 4, and if necessary, this is when you get into those 3-day layoffs. There'll be some time to recover and some time to think about things. Game 5, if necessary, Saturday, June 14th. Game 6, Tuesday, June 17th. Game 7 will go as late as Friday, June 20th. We mentioned a little bit last year, Alec, those long air travels in between Edmonton and Florida, but I am very shocked that Gary Bettman this time around does not have a Game 2 set on a weekend. It just seems unusual.
Yeah, that just seems wrong. That Game 2 would not be set on a weekend, on a Friday?
Yeah. Yeah, so the scheduling is a little bit to keep in mind. Again, I will have it all posted. We got our shout outs across the board. Alec, I appreciate you joining me. And again, for about 2.5 years, essentially been working here together as far as doing the full broadcast. I'm so glad and thankful. Again, I get a chance to say this every year, to work alongside you. I don't take any of that stuff for granted. You're one of the very, very best in the business, and I consider you a very close and personal friend. I really appreciate all of your hard work. And I hope that we get another long series to work together again, because I'm very excited for this rematch. And again, I know Cooper's going to slap me upside the head for mentioning Edmonton, but I think we both take our analyst hat and put that on well. This is their best chance. That's not to say that Florida isn't game for it, because they can get 2 out of 3 just like the Bolts did. And they played a lot of hockey along the stretch. And yes, the Cats are better too, but if the Oilers are going to do it, they better do it now.
They have to. This is must win. Thanks for I appreciate you for having me on this pregame show. Let's get this going tomorrow. We're hoping for another long series, possibly the distance like last year. It's a shame that we never got overtime.
I would think, as you said, it was a lot closer last year when you got to Game 7, but I agree with your point that you made previously. I don't think we're going to see as many 8-1s. I mean, the fact that we saw an 8-1 in Game 4, we were shocked in some of the things when we saw a 6-1 against Toronto in between Scotiabank and 5 and 7. And those were the most brutal games that we've ever had to cover. I think those are worse than probably the 8-1s, but I imagine we don't see those again.
I don't believe so.
So we'll get set to close out here, and Alec will join me alongside 8:05, 8:10 Eastern tomorrow. We're looking forward to it. We'll see you tomorrow. Amerant Bank Arena will be the road site, and that's where Florida is going to start in 3 and 4. This time, Edmonton gets home ice advantage at Rogers. We'll see you on the TNT coverage side about 8:10. You guys take care.
Take care.